I was sitting in a lawyer's office in Bozeman, Montana, when I learned I had inherited something that would change my life in ways I never imagined. My Uncle Frank had passed away 3 months earlier, and I had driven up from Denver for the reading of his will. I expected maybe some old tools, perhaps a beat-up truck, maybe a few $1,000s if I was lucky. What I got instead was a 2-mile stretch of gravel road cutting through some of the most beautiful ranch land in Park County. The access road, the attorney, Mr. Henderson said, adjusting his glasses as he slid a property survey across his mahogany desk. Runs from State Route 89 all the way to the back of your uncle's former ranch property. He sold the ranch itself about 15 years ago to a development company, but he retained ownership of the access road. It was important to him. I studied the survey map, tracing the thin line that represented the road with my finger. Why would he keep just the road, Mr. Henderson leaned back in his chair, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. Your uncle was a peculiar man, Mr. Morrison. He believed that road was the heart of the land. He built it himself back in 1978, every inch of it. When the developers came knocking with their money, he sold them everything except that road. Made them agree in writing that they could use it for access, but it would always belong to him. So what am I supposed to do with a road? I asked, genuinely confused. Whatever you want, mister. Henderson replied, it is private property. The deed is clear. You own it outright, including the land 6 feet on either side of the roadway itself. The development that was built on the old ranch property, Meadowbrook Estates, they have been using it as their primary access point for years. There is an easement that allows them access, but you are the legal owner. I drove out to see the property that afternoon. The road started at a simple cattle guard where it branched off from the state highway. A faded wooden sign read "Private Road," but nothing else. The gravel was well maintained, clearly seeing regular use. As I drove slowly down its length, I passed rolling hills dotted with sage brush and the occasional cluster of pine trees. Montana in early September was stunning, all golden light and endless sky. At the end of the road, everything changed. The wild ranch land gave way suddenly to a manicured suburban development that looked like it had been teleported from some California suburb. Identical 2-story houses painted in various shades of beige and gray lined pristine streets, perfectly trimmed lawns, young trees planted at precise intervals. A large sign announced Meadowbrook Estates, luxury living in big sky country. I pulled into the main entrance area and just sat in my truck for a moment, taking it all in. The contrast was jarring. Behind me, wild Montana, in front of me, suburban America, and I owned the only road connecting them. My phone rang. It was my wife, Sarah, calling from our apartment in Denver. How did it go? She asked. You are not going to believe this, I said, and I explained everything. She was quiet for a moment. So you own a road, that is random. That is what I said. But apparently it is worth something, Mr. Henderson said the HOA at this development has been paying a nominal annual fee to the estate for years, just $100, to maintain the easement agreement. Well, at least it is something, Sarah said. Are you driving back tonight? Yeah, I will head out soon, just wanted to see it in person. I was about to leave when a silver Lexus SUV pulled up next to me. A woman in her mid-50s with blonde highlights and designer sunglasses rolled down her window. She had that particular look of someone used to getting her way. Excuse me, she called out. Are you lost? This is a private community. I smiled politely. No, ma'am, just looking around. I actually own the access road you all used to get here. Her expression changed instantly, the fake pleasantness evaporating. Oh, you must be Frank's nephew. I am Patricia Cunningham, president of the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. Nice to meet you. I am Jake Morrison. Yes, well, we have been expecting someone to contact us about the road situation, Patricia said, her tone clipped. We will need to discuss the maintenance agreement going forward. The road has some potholes that need addressing. I raised an eyebrow. Potholes? Yes, the road is in acceptable condition, but it requires regular maintenance. We have been handling minor repairs ourselves, but larger issues need to be addressed. Since you now own it, we will need you to take care of that. Something in her tone rubbed me the wrong way. I will look into it. Have a good day, Mrs. Cunningham. I drove back down the road slowly, looking for these supposed potholes. The road was in excellent condition. Whatever maintenance had been done, it had been done well. The drive back to Denver gave me a lot of time to think. I had a decent job as an IT manager, Sarah worked as a nurse, and we were saving for a house. An unexpected inheritance, even a weird one like a road, might actually be useful. But I was not sure what to do with it. Over the next 2 weeks, I did not think much about the road. Work was busy, life continued. Then I got a certified letter from the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. The letter, signed by Patricia Cunningham in aggressive cursive, informed me that as the owner of the access road, I was now responsible for all maintenance, snow removal, grading, and repairs. Furthermore, they were suspending the annual easement fee of $100 because, in their assessment, the road was not being properly maintained, and thus, they were not receiving adequate value for their payment. I read it twice, then called Mr. Henderson. Can they do this? I asked. He sighed. Let me review the original easement agreement. But generally speaking, if you own the road, you are responsible for maintaining it. However, they cannot unilaterally change the terms of the easement. Give me a few days to research this. 3 days later, Mr. Henderson called me back. I have good news and interesting news. The good news is that the easement agreement your uncle signed is very basic. It grants access, nothing more. There is no requirement for you to maintain the road to any particular standard. The interesting news is that the easement agreement can be terminated with 90 days' notice by either party. So I could just close the road? I asked. Technically, yes, but that would create significant problems for the residents of Meadowbrook Estates. That road is their primary access. They have a secondary access road on the north side of the development that connects to County Road 43, but it is much longer and less convenient. Your uncle's road cuts travel time to Bozeman by about 20 minutes. What would you recommend? Mr. Henderson was quiet for a moment. Your uncle maintained this road as leverage. The development company wanted to buy it from him for years. He always refused. He enjoyed having that control, I think. You could sell it to them, or you could negotiate a better easement agreement. But whatever you decide, you should know that HOA boards can be difficult to deal with, especially ones in expensive developments. I thanked him and hung up. That night, Sarah and I talked it over. How much do you think it is worth? She asked. I have no idea, it is just a gravel road, but apparently it is important to them. Maybe we could sell it and use the money for a down payment on a house, Sarah suggested. That seemed reasonable. I decided to reach out to Patricia Cunningham and see if the HOA wanted to purchase the road. I sent a polite email explaining that I was interested in selling the road and asking if the HOA would like to make an offer. Her response came within an hour. Mr. Morrison, the HOA has no interest in purchasing the road. The current easement agreement is adequate for our needs. However, we again must insist that you address the maintenance issues immediately. We have documented several safety concerns, including loose gravel, inadequate drainage, and insufficient width in certain areas. Failure to address these concerns may result in legal action. Regards, Patricia Cunningham, HOA President. I stared at my computer screen in disbelief. Legal action? The road was fine. I had driven it myself. This was absurd. I forwarded the email to Mr. Henderson. He called me the next morning. They are bluffing, he said. They have no grounds for legal action. The road is private property, and the easement agreement contains no maintenance requirements. I think they are trying to pressure you into either improving the road at your expense or selling it to them for cheap. So what should I do? You have a few options. You could ignore them. You could terminate the easement and close the road, or you could renegotiate the terms. An idea was forming in my head. What if I charged them for using the road? Mr. Henderson paused. That is not covered in the current easement agreement. You would need to terminate the existing agreement and create a new one. But yes, as the property owner, you could absolutely charge for access. How much could I charge? Whatever the market will bear. If they have no reasonable alternative access, you have significant leverage, but be careful. If you charge too much, they might claim you are acting in bad faith or trying to extort them. Keep it reasonable and document everything. Over the next few days, I did research. I looked up what toll roads charged, what private access fees looked like, and what would be fair. The road was 2 miles long, well-maintained, and saved the residents significant time and distance. There were 43 houses in Meadowbrook Estates. Most families had 2 vehicles, some had 3. I decided on $25 per vehicle per month. It seemed reasonable. That was less than $1 a day to use the road. For unlimited access to a well-maintained private road that saved them significant time, it was more than fair. I had Mr. Henderson draft a formal notice terminating the existing easement agreement. The 90-day notice period would begin immediately. After those 90 days, anyone wanting to use the road would need to pay the monthly fee. The letter went out on a Tuesday. On Thursday, my phone started ringing. The first call was from Patricia Cunningham. She did not even say hello. "This is outrageous," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "You cannot charge us to use that road. We have been using it for 15 years. "Good morning, Mrs. Cunningham," I said calmly. "You have been using it under an easement agreement that I am terminating, as is my legal right. After the 90-day notice period, the new terms will take effect. This is extortion. We will sue you. You are welcome to consult with an attorney, but I assure you this is completely legal. The road is private property. I am simply charging a reasonable access fee. $25 per vehicle is not reasonable. Do you have any idea how much that will cost our residents?" "Less than most people pay for their cell phone bill," I replied, "and significantly less than the cost and time of using the alternate route. We will not pay this. We will find another way." "That is certainly your right. The alternate access via County Road 43 is available to you." She hung up on me. The next call came from a lawyer representing the HOA. He was more professional but equally clear about their position. They believed the easement was permanent and could not be terminated. They were prepared to seek an injunction. I referred him to Mr. Henderson and let them work it out. Over the following week, the situation escalated. I started receiving angry emails from residents of Meadowbrook Estates. Some were threatening, some were pleading. Many acted as if I was personally attacking them. One email that stood out was from a man named Richard Foster. His was different from the others. "Mr. Morrison, I understand you own the road and have the legal right to charge for access. While I do not love the idea of another monthly bill, your proposed fee seems reasonable given the convenience the road provides. However, I wanted you to know that several residents, led by Patricia Cunningham, are organizing to make your life difficult. I have seen this kind of thing before with our HOA. She does not take kindly to not getting her way. I am telling you this as a courtesy. Some of us are not on board with the aggressive approach the HOA board is taking. Regards, Richard Foster." I appreciated his honesty and wrote back thanking him. The legal wrangling continued. "Mr. Henderson informed me that the HOA's lawyer was arguing that the easement created an implied permanent right of access, and that charging a fee was tantamount to blocking access entirely. "It is a weak argument," Mr. Henderson said, "but they might be able to drag this out in court for a while, which could be expensive for you." "How expensive?" "Legal fees could run you $10,000 to $20,000, maybe more if they really fight it, but you would almost certainly win. The law is clear on this." I did some quick math. If even half the residents signed up for the access fee, that was roughly 50 vehicles at $25 per month. $1,500 monthly. $18,000 a year. It would pay for the legal fees within a year, and after that it would be decent passive income. "Let them fight it," I said. "I am not backing down." The 90-day notice period continued. I hired a local contractor in Montana to install a gate at the entrance to the road and set up a simple payment system. Residents who wanted access could register online, pay the monthly fee, and receive a key code for the gate. The gate would be installed on day 91, the day after the easement agreement expired. As the deadline approached, the tension increased. Patricia Cunningham organized a community meeting and somehow got local news involved. A reporter from a Bozeman television station called me for comment. "Mr. Morrison, residents of Meadowbrook Estates say you are holding their access road hostage and charging excessive fees." "How do you respond?" "I own a private road," I said calmly. "I am charging a modest fee for its use. It is less than $1 a day per vehicle. The road is well maintained and provides significant value to the residents. They have an alternate route available if they choose not to pay the fee. But some residents say this feels like extortion, especially given that they have been using this road for years. They were using it under an agreement that I chose to terminate. That is my legal right as the property owner. I am not blocking access. I am simply charging a reasonable fee." The story aired that evening. To my surprise, public opinion seemed split. Some people thought I was being greedy. Others thought the HOA was being entitled. The comments section on the news station's website was entertaining. With 1 week to go before the deadline, the HOA made their move. They filed for a temporary restraining order to prevent me from installing the gate. The hearing was scheduled for 2 days before the deadline. Mr. Henderson and I drove up to Bozeman for the hearing. The courtroom was small, and several residents from Meadowbrook Estates were there, including Patricia Cunningham, who glared at me from across the room. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s named Judge Marlowe, heard both sides. The HOA's attorney argued that cutting off access would create a significant hardship for the residents, and that the original easement created an implied permanent right. Mr. Henderson countered that the easement agreement explicitly could be terminated by either party with proper notice. That proper notice had been given, and that access was not being cut off, but simply being offered under new terms. He also pointed out that an alternate access route existed. Judge Marlowe looked over the documents carefully. After what felt like forever, she spoke. "The court finds that the easement agreement is clear in its termination clause. The property owner has provided adequate notice. While the court understands this creates an inconvenience for the residents, inconvenience does not rise to the level of irreparable harm, especially given the existence of an alternate access route. The temporary restraining order is denied." Patricia Cunningham looked like she had been slapped. Her attorney immediately stood and asked for the opportunity to pursue a permanent injunction. Judge Marlowe looked unimpressed. "You may pursue whatever legal remedies you believe are appropriate, counselor. But I will tell you now that based on the documents I have reviewed, the property owner appears to be well within his rights. I suggest your clients consider negotiating in good faith rather than continuing to pursue expensive litigation that is unlikely to succeed." We left the courthouse. Mr. Henderson was pleased. I was just relieved. That was a good outcome, he said. The judge basically telegraphed that they will not win this fight. Hopefully they will be reasonable now. They were not reasonable. On the day the easement expired, I had the gate installed. It was a simple but sturdy metal gate with a keypad entry system. Signs on either side read "Private Road, Authorized Access Only," and listed the website where residents could sign up for access. By that afternoon, I had received exactly 0 sign-ups and approximately 30 angry phone calls. That evening, someone cut the lock on the gate and drove through. I received an alert from the gate company. I called the Park County Sheriff's Office and reported the vandalism. A deputy came out the next morning to take a report. He was sympathetic but realistic. "This is a civil issue mostly," he said. "You can press charges for criminal mischief, but unless you have cameras that caught who did it, it will be hard to prove. My suggestion is to install cameras and make it clear that you will prosecute anyone who damages your property." I took his advice. I had cameras installed at both ends of the road, pointed at the gate and at the entrance to Meadowbrook Estates. I also upgraded to a more robust gate that would be harder to damage. The next week was a war of attrition. Some residents started using the alternate route via County Road 43. Others tried to intimidate me into backing down. Patricia Cunningham sent a certified letter threatening to sue me for lost property values, claiming that the inconvenience of the alternate route was harming home prices. But slowly, residents started signing up. The first was Richard Foster, the man who had emailed me earlier, then a few others. By the end of the second week, I had 12 sign-ups. By the end of the month, I had 28. The holdouts were primarily people closely aligned with Patricia Cunningham and the HOA board. They were making a show of using the longer route, trying to prove a point. Then something unexpected happened. I received an email from a real estate developer named Tom Chen. He had heard about the situation and wanted to meet. I agreed to talk with him by phone first. "Mr. Morrison," he said, "I represent a development company that is interested in purchasing your access road. We believe we can offer you a fair price." "What kind of price are we talking about?" "We would offer $75,000 for the road and a permanent easement for Meadowbrook Estates residents at no charge to them." It was a substantial offer. Sarah and I could pay off our car loan, put a down payment on a house, and still have money left over, but something about it bothered me. "Can I ask who your client is?" Tom hesitated. "I am not at liberty to say yet, but I assure you they are legitimate." "Is it the HOA?" "I really cannot say at this time. That told me everything I needed to know." I thanked him for the offer and said I would think about it. That night, Sarah and I talked it through. $75,000 is a lot of money, she said. "It is. But if this is the HOA making a lowball offer through a third party, I do not want to reward their behavior. They have been nothing but hostile. Plus, if I keep the road, we will make over $20,000 a year once everyone signs up." "That is better long-term," Sarah nodded. "You are right, but what if they keep fighting you?" "Then they keep using the long route and I keep collecting fees from the people who are reasonable." I declined Tom Chen's offer. 2 days later, the HOA filed a lawsuit. They were suing me for breach of implied contract, interference with property rights, and about 5 other things that Mr. Henderson said were mostly nonsense. "This is going to be expensive to defend," he warned me, "even though you will win." "How expensive?" $30,000 at least, maybe $50 if they drag it out. I did the math again. I now had 32 residents paying $25 per vehicle monthly. Some had 2 vehicles, some had 3. I was bringing in about $2,000 per month. It would take a while to recoup legal fees, but I believed in the principle of the thing. This was my property. I had done nothing wrong. "Let's fight it," I said. The discovery phase of the lawsuit was revealing. Through document requests, I learned that Patricia Cunningham had been trying to buy the road from my Uncle Frank for years. He had refused repeatedly, at one point telling her in a letter that he would rather leave it to his cat than sell it to the HOA. Uncle Frank did not even have a cat. I was starting to understand why he kept the road. I also learned that the HOA had significant financial resources. They had levied a special assessment on all residents to fund the lawsuit, charging each household $500 to fight me. Some residents were furious about this, which drove more sign-ups to my access system. By December, 3 months into the gate being active, I had 42 residents signed up. The lawsuit moved slowly through the Montana court system. In the meantime, winter arrived. Montana winters are serious business. Snow piled up. The state highway was plowed regularly. County Road 43 was plowed eventually, but not as frequently. My road was not plowed at all. I started getting emails and calls from residents who had signed up for access, asking about snow removal. "The road is impassable," one resident wrote. "We are paying for access but cannot use it." He had a point. I contacted a local snow removal company and got a quote. They would plow the road after each significant snowfall for $300 per visit. In a typical winter, that might be 20 to 30 times, $6,000 to $9,000. I did more math. My monthly revenue was now around $2,000. That was $24,000 per year. Snow removal would eat about a third of that, still profitable but tighter than I liked. I considered raising the fee but decided against it. Instead, I added a winter surcharge of $10 per vehicle per month for December through March. I sent an email explaining the additional cost and the snow removal service it would fund. Most people understood and accepted it. Patricia Cunningham did not. She forwarded my email to the local news with a statement calling me a profiteering outsider who is exploiting Montana residents. The story gained some traction. I got some hate mail. I also got some surprising support. An opinion columnist in the Bozeman Daily Chronicle wrote a piece titled "Property Rights Matter, Defending My Position." Whether you agree with Mr. Morrison's approach or not, the principle is clear. He owns the property. The HOA is trying to use public pressure and litigation to force him to provide access for free. This sets a dangerous precedent. Today it is an access road. Tomorrow it could be someone's grazing land or water rights. The law is on Mr. Morrison's side, and the law exists to protect property owners from exactly this kind of pressure. I appreciated that. The snow removal service worked well. The contractor was reliable, and the road stayed passable throughout the winter. Residents who used my road had much better access than those using County Road 43, which the county sometimes did not plow for days after a big storm. By February, I had 48 residents signed up. Only a handful of holdouts remained, mostly HOA board members and their close allies. The lawsuit was scheduled for trial in March. Mr. Henderson was confident but cautioned me that trials were unpredictable. "You have the law on your side," he said, "but judges and juries can surprise you. Be prepared for any outcome." The trial lasted 3 days. The HOA's attorney brought in an expert witness who testified that the road was essential infrastructure and that charging for access was economically predatory. Mr. Henderson countered with our own expert who explained property law and the rights of private landowners. Several residents testified. Patricia Cunningham took the stand and painted me as a greedy outsider who did not care about the community. Richard Foster also testified, explaining that while he was not thrilled about paying the fee, he found it reasonable and believed the HOA was being unreasonable in refusing to negotiate. When I testified, the HOA's attorney tried to make me seem like a villain. Mr. Morrison, is not it true that you are charging these families hundreds of dollars per year just to access their own homes? No, I said calmly. I am charging a modest fee to use private property that I own and maintain. They have an alternate route available at no cost. They choose to use my road because it is more convenient. But you are profiting from their need. I am charging for access to my property, just like a toll road or a parking garage. The fee is reasonable and covers maintenance costs plus a modest return. Did you ever consider the impact on families, on elderly residents, on the community? I did. That is why the fee is only $25 per month, less than most utility bills. I believe that is fair compensation for the use of private property. The judge, a different one this time, listened carefully to everything. In his closing remarks before taking the case under advisement, he made an interesting observation. This court has heard testimony about fairness, community, property rights, and economic impact. But fundamentally, this case is quite simple. The plaintiff HOA argues they have a right to use the defendant's property without paying a fee. The defendant argues he has a right to control access to his private property and charge a reasonable fee. The court will issue a ruling within 30 days. Those 30 days were tense. I kept up the snow removal service. More residents signed up as they realized the lawsuit was not going well for the HOA. By the time the ruling came, I had 53 vehicles registered and paying. The ruling was decisive. The judge found in my favor on every count. He wrote in his opinion that the right to control and profit from one's private property is fundamental to our legal system. The plaintiff has failed to demonstrate any legal basis for compelling the defendant to provide free access. The fees charged are reasonable and not excessive. The existence of an alternate route negates any claim of undue hardship. The HOA was ordered to pay my legal fees, which had reached $42,000. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks after the ruling, I drove up to Montana to personally check on the road. It was early April mud season. The road needed grading. I had scheduled a contractor to handle it. When I arrived at the gate, I found it had been completely destroyed. Not just damaged, but obliterated. Someone had used a vehicle, probably a large truck, to ram through it. The gate was twisted metal scattered across the road. The keypad system was smashed. One of the cameras had been spray-painted over. The other was missing entirely. I felt a wave of anger. This was thousands of dollars in damage. I called the Park County Sheriff's Office immediately. A detective named Sarah Mills came out to investigate. She was thorough, photographing everything and taking my statement. "This is felony criminal mischief," she said. "The damage is easily over $1,000. Do you have any idea who might have done this?" "I have suspicions," I said, "but I do not have proof." "Tell me about your suspicions." I explained the whole situation with the HOA, the lawsuit, and the animosity from Patricia Cunningham. Detective Mills took notes. "We will investigate. In the meantime, I would recommend not only replacing the gate but installing more cameras well hidden with cloud backup. If this happens again, we need to catch them in the act." I took her advice. I spent $8,000 on a new, even more robust gate system and multiple hidden cameras with night vision and motion detection that uploaded footage directly to the cloud. 3 days after the new gate was installed, it happened again. This time, the cameras caught everything. At 2:15 in the morning, a large black pickup truck pulled up to the gate. 2 people got out, both wearing dark clothing and masks. They attached a chain to the gate and used the truck to try to pull it down. The new gate was stronger and did not budge. After several attempts, they gave up and instead spray-painted obscenities across the gate and road signs. The truck's license plate was clearly visible in the footage. I called Detective Mills immediately. She came out that morning to review the footage. Well, that makes things easier, she said. I will run the plates and we will go from there. 2 days later, she called me. The truck is registered to Patricia Cunningham's husband, David Cunningham. We will be bringing them both in for questioning. The case moved quickly after that. David Cunningham initially denied involvement, but cracked when confronted with the video evidence. He admitted to the second incident of vandalism. He also admitted to the first, though that footage had been destroyed when they stole the camera. Patricia Cunningham maintained her innocence, claiming she knew nothing about it. But text messages recovered from David's phone told a different story. She had encouraged him to take care of the gate problem and had been informed after both incidents. The Park County prosecutor charged them both. David was charged with 2 counts of felony criminal mischief. Patricia was charged with conspiracy to commit criminal mischief. The story exploded in local media. HOA president arrested for vandalizing road gate was the headline in the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. The story detailed the whole saga, from the inheritance to the lawsuit to the vandalism. The reaction in Meadowbrook Estates was dramatic. An emergency HOA meeting was called. Patricia Cunningham was voted out as president and removed from the board entirely. Several other board members resigned. Richard Foster, the resident who had been reasonable from the beginning, was elected as the new president. He called me a week later. Mr. Morrison, this is Richard Foster. I wanted to reach out personally to apologize on behalf of the community for everything that has happened. What Patricia did was inexcusable. The new board would like to meet with you to discuss a path forward. I appreciate that, Mr. Foster. Please call me Richard. I was wondering if you would be open to negotiating a long-term access agreement. We understand you have the legal right to charge whatever you want, but we would like to work out something that is sustainable for both sides. I am willing to talk, I said. We met the following week at a coffee shop in Bozeman. Richard brought 2 other new board members, both of whom seemed reasonable and apologetic about the past behavior of the HOA. Here is what we are thinking, Richard said. The community acknowledges your ownership of the road and your right to charge for access. We would like to propose a group agreement. Instead of individual residents paying monthly, the HOA would pay you an annual fee that covers access for all residents and guests. We would also be willing to contribute to major maintenance costs. In exchange, you would guarantee access and basic upkeep. What kind of annual fee are you thinking? Richard slid a piece of paper across the table. We ran the numbers based on current usage. There are 43 homes averaging 2 vehicles each, plus guest access. At your current rate of $25 per vehicle per month, that is about $25,000 per year. We would propose a flat fee of $30,000 per year, paid in quarterly installments. The extra $5,000 would go into a joint maintenance fund that we would both contribute to. I thought about it. $30,000 per year guaranteed was actually better than the current system, where I had to manage individual accounts and deal with people signing up and canceling. It was also more than I was currently making since not everyone had signed up. What about snow removal? I asked. We would split that cost, Richard said. The HOA would contract directly with a snow removal service and pay for it. We would treat it as a community expense. And what happens if the HOA tries to back out or sue me again? We would put everything in a formal written agreement with a 10-year term, renewable. If either party breaches, there are specified remedies. We would also include language acknowledging your full property rights and waiving any future claims to ownership of the road. It was a good offer. More importantly, it was a reasonable offer from reasonable people. I would want my attorney to review the agreement, I said. Of course, we would want ours to review it too. But do we have a deal in principle? I shook his hand. Yes, we do. The agreement took 6 weeks to finalize. Both attorneys went back and forth on language and details, but the basic framework held. The HOA would pay me $30,000 per year for guaranteed access for all residents and guests. Snow removal would be their responsibility and expense. I would maintain the road in passable condition. The agreement was for 10 years with an automatic renewal unless either party gave notice. We signed the agreement in early June. My first quarterly payment of $7,500 arrived a week later. The criminal case against Patricia and David Cunningham proceeded through the court system. In September, they both accepted plea deals. David pleaded guilty to 2 counts of criminal mischief and was sentenced to 1 year of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to pay restitution of $12,000 for the damage to my gates and cameras. Patricia pleaded guilty to conspiracy and received a similar sentence, though her restitution was joint with her husband. I heard through Richard that they moved away from Meadowbrook Estates shortly after the sentencing. They sold their house and left Montana. I did not follow up on where they went. I did not care. The road became a non-issue for everyone. The HOA paid on time every quarter. I hired a local contractor to grade the road twice a year and handle any repairs. The snow removal worked smoothly. Richard and I developed a friendly working relationship, occasionally emailing about road conditions or maintenance schedules. The $30,000 per year was not enough to quit my job, but it was significant. Sarah and I used the first year's payment as a down payment on a house in Denver. The second year's payment went into savings. By the third year, we were using it to fund vacations and home improvements. Uncle Frank had been right to keep that road. It was more valuable than the ranch land itself in some ways. Not because of the land or the gravel, but because of its position and purpose. It was leverage. It was control. And used properly, it was an asset that provided value to everyone. I visited the road every few months, usually combining it with a weekend trip to Montana. I would drive its length slowly, checking for problems, enjoying the views. It always struck me how this 2-mile stretch of gravel had caused so much conflict and ultimately brought so much benefit. On one visit in late autumn, about 4 years after I had inherited the road, I ran into Richard Foster at the entrance to Meadowbrook Estates. He was checking his mailbox. "Jake," he called out. "Good to see you. How is everything?" "Good, just doing my quarterly inspection. Road looks good." "It does. Hey, I wanted to tell you something. Property values in the development have actually gone up since we resolved the road situation. Turns out having a maintained private access road with guaranteed snow removal is a selling point. People like the exclusivity of it," I laughed. "That is ironic. Patricia was so worried about property values." "She was worried about control," Richard said, "not property values." "There is a difference. You handled this whole thing with a lot more grace than I would have. I just wanted what was fair. You got it, and so did we eventually. Took us a while to figure that out." We chatted for a few more minutes, and then I continued my drive. The Montana landscape was stunning in the fall, all gold and orange under a brilliant blue sky. As I drove back down the access road toward the highway, I thought about the journey. From that first confused meeting in the lawyer's office to the lawsuit to the vandalism to the final resolution, it had been a wild few years. I had learned a lot about property law, about dealing with difficult people, and about standing up for what was right even when it was hard. The road stretched out ahead of me, well-maintained gravel cutting through beautiful country. It was more than just a road now. It was a reminder that sometimes the things we inherit come with complications, but also with opportunities. Uncle Frank had understood that. He had held onto this road not out of spite, but because he knew its value. I made it back to Denver that evening. Sarah was making dinner when I walked in. "How was Montana?" she asked. "Good." Quiet, the road is in great shape. Got the quarterly payment last week, she said. I put it in savings like we discussed. Sounds good. We ate dinner and talked about ordinary things, work and friends and plans for the weekend. The road was just part of our life now, a quirky asset that provided steady income and occasional drama. But the drama had settled. The system worked. Everyone got what they needed. The following spring, Richard called me with an unexpected question. Jake, the HOA board has been talking and we have a proposal for you. We would like to buy the road outright. We would offer you $250,000 for complete ownership, free and clear. I was surprised. That was serious money. Sarah and I could pay off our mortgage and still have plenty left over. That is a big number, I said. Can I ask what changed? A couple of things. 1, we want to ensure long-term control of our own access. Having it be privately owned by someone outside the community always carries some risk, even though you have been great to work with. 2, we have a new resident who is a real estate attorney. She looked at the situation and recommended we acquire the road for liability and control purposes. 3, we can finance it through a special assessment spread over several years so it would not hit residents all at once. I need to talk to Sarah and think about it. Of course, take your time. The offer stands. That night, Sarah and I sat down and really talked through it. $250,000 would change our lives, Sarah said. We could be mortgage-free. We could invest it and let it grow. But we are making $30,000 a year on it now, I pointed out. That is a guaranteed income stream. In less than 10 years, we will make more than the sale price. True, but there is risk. What if they stop paying? What if there is another lawsuit? What if something happens and we have to deal with major repairs? She had valid points. The income was great, but it came with ongoing responsibilities and potential complications. What do you want to do? I asked her. Sarah thought for a long moment. I think we should sell. We have gotten good value out of it. We have proven a point. But I would rather have the money now, eliminate the mortgage, and not have to think about Montana road maintenance for the rest of our lives. I realized she was right. The road had served its purpose. It had provided income, taught me some valuable lessons, and ultimately worked out well for everyone. But it was time to move on. I called Richard the next day. We will accept your offer. The sale took a few months to finalize. There were surveys and title work and legal documents. The HOA arranged financing through a special assessment that would cost each household about $5,000 spread over 5 years. Some residents grumbled about it, but most saw it as a worthwhile investment in their property values and peace of mind. We closed on the sale in August. A check for $250,000 was deposited into our account. The road was officially owned by the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. Sarah and I paid off our mortgage the following week. The feeling of being debt-free was incredible. We invested a significant portion of the remaining money in index funds. We used some for a long vacation to Italy that we had always dreamed about. I still thought about the road sometimes. It had been such a strange and significant part of my life for several years. But I did not regret selling it. It had been the right decision at the right time. A few months after the sale, I received a package in the mail from Richard Foster. Inside was a framed photograph of the access road, taken at sunset with the Montana mountains in the background. There was also a note. Jake, on behalf of the Meadowbrook Estates community, thank you for being reasonable, fair, and principled throughout this whole saga. This road gave us fits for years, but working with you taught us some important lessons about property rights, fairness, and negotiation. Enjoy your life without Montana road maintenance duties. Best wishes, Richard Foster. I hung the photograph in my home office. It was a good reminder of the whole experience. Years later, I would occasionally tell the story at dinner parties or social gatherings. People were always fascinated by it. Most could not believe that a simple inheritance of a gravel road had led to lawsuits, vandalism arrests, and ultimately a significant financial gain. What was the biggest lesson you learned? Someone asked me once. I thought about it. That property rights matter, that standing up for what is fair is worth the trouble, and that most conflicts can be resolved when reasonable people are willing to negotiate. But also, when you are dealing with unreasonable people, you have to be willing to stand firm and let the legal system work. Looking back, the whole saga seemed almost surreal. I had gone from inheriting something I did not understand and did not know what to do with, to fighting for my rights as a property owner, to ultimately profiting significantly from it. Uncle Frank would have been proud, I think. He had held onto that road for leverage and principle. I had done the same in my own way. The money from the sale had genuinely changed our lives. Being mortgage-free gave us financial flexibility and peace of mind. We were able to save more aggressively, travel more, and stress less about money. All from a 2-mile gravel road in Montana that I had never even known existed until that day in the lawyer's office. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I had handled things differently. What if I had just sold the road immediately to the first developer who approached me? What if I had backed down when Patricia Cunningham started her campaign against me? What if I had not been willing to fight the lawsuit? But I did not regret any of my decisions. I had been fair throughout. The $25 monthly fee had been reasonable. The legal fight had been necessary. Standing up to vandalism and ensuring prosecution had been the right thing to do. And ultimately, selling the road to the HOA for a fair price had been the right conclusion. The experience had taught me that inheritance is not just about what you receive, but about what you do with it. Uncle Frank had left me more than a road. He had left me an opportunity and a challenge. I liked to think I had handled both well. On quiet evenings, when I was sitting in my paid-off house with Sarah, I sometimes pulled up the property records for that stretch of road in Park County, Montana. It now belonged to the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, but it would always be Uncle Frank's road to me, and for a few interesting years, it had been mine. The whole experience had been frustrating, expensive, dramatic, and ultimately rewarding. It had involved lawyers and judges, vandals and reasonable people, conflict and resolution. It had taught me about property law, about standing firm in the face of pressure, about negotiation, and about knowing when to fight and when to move on. And it had all started with a simple inheritance. A 2-mile gravel road that connected the Montana wilderness to a suburban development. A road that somehow ended up changing my life in ways I never could have imagined when I first sat down in that lawyer's office in Bozeman and learned what Uncle Frank had left me.